So we've got a very, very exciting broadcast here today. We're joined by some very special guests. With us today, we've got Angad Oberoi and DJ Kicks or Kartik A. We won't go into his last name. Obviously, two of the biggest known names from the Swami Army, which are, of course, India's biggest and number one supporter group here in Australia and New Zealand. We're also joined by Infinity Cricket media expert Udi Gore, who is a veteran in the Premier cricket scene. He is a talented and up-and-coming left-arm spinner, and he'll be giving his thoughts from a tactical perspective as well. So great for you guys to join us today. We also will be joined by Chetan Arula, one of the leading journalists coming out of India as well, who's actually having dinner at the moment, but he'll be joining us a little bit later. So thank you guys for making it today. It's great to always have you guys on.
Thanks for having us, mate.
Thanks for having
us.
So I guess the beauty of today is we've got Kartik, who was there in Adelaide to witness that first Test match, whilst the rest of us were probably looking at it on TV and the internet as well. So just to sort of give a bit of a recap on that first Test match of the series, it started a little bit late because of the untimely death of Phil Hughes. What a grouping Test match it was. Australia batted first and racked up 517 runs. India, in reply, made 444, and Michael Clarke, I thought, did a very sporting declaration in Australia's second innings when the Aussies made 5 for 290 declared, giving India a target of 364 runs, which they got close, but unfortunately wasn't close enough, losing the game ultimately by 48 runs, but all in all, it was a fascinating and enthralling Test match that I think, cricket was the winner. So we'll go first to Kartik, who was in Adelaide to give his perspectives and thoughts, firstly on the Test match, but also on sort of the highlights and also perhaps some of the things that India can work on in the lead up to the second match.
Yeah, thanks, Nav. As you said, I was in Adelaide for the Test match. Wonderful scenes, obviously, especially on day one. It's a very somber start to the Test match with the Phil Hughes memorial and whatever it was. So that was really good. I think the Adelaide crowd really came out and, everyone, the whole of the world cricket got together and really celebrated Phil Hughes' life. And then on day one, once that first bouncer was bowled, sort of everyone cheered and it really got that out of the way. Then we could move on for the rest of the game. And then slowly the milestones came out. So when David Warner got to 63 off, I think it was about 10 balls, you looked up to the skies and the crowd again cheered him on for the 63. Then when he got to a century, it was a very emotional moment. So all the Australian boys batted well. Every time they got a century, the crowd got behind him, and the boys really got behind Phil Hughes as well. He's been with them throughout the Test match, and in everyone's hearts, even in the Indians as well. So in Indians' hearts as well. So I think from that perspective, it was a very good spectacle for world cricket, and the public got behind him, and it was a really, really good effort by everyone involved. In terms of the actual result of the game, look, I'm really happy from an Indian perspective. I'm really happy that Virat Kohli and his men actually went for the win on the last day. We could have easily just and also credit must go to Clarke as well for declaring when he did. Australia could have easily batted on in the next morning and pushed the lead past 400 and really just make it an Australian win or a draw. But he gave India a chance to get the runs and made a sporting declaration, and Virat Kohli took it with both hands, and almost pulled it off. A sensational fourth innings century by himself. Two centuries in 2 innings, as in his first game as captain as well. So that was fantastic effort by him. David Warner also two twin centuries there. Steve Smith, who is now shortly today being announced as the next Australian captain, also picking up a century as well. So I think, all in all, some great performances. And for me, the man of the match, who was determined, who was announced as man of the match, was Nathan Lyon. He won the game for Australia on that final day. Proved a lot of people wrong, including myself. We certainly gave it to him at the ground, but no, he did really well. He bowled his heart out and really won the game for Australia. There were a lot of question marks on whether he could do it or not. He stepped up and got the job done for the Aussies, and that's why they're 1-0 up. But a great Test match all in all, a great effort by both teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that we saw on TV there, Karthik, was of course the coverage that the Swami Army supporters got on TV as well. How was it like, obviously being there in amongst it, and as we've seen in previous years, what you guys do really motivates the Indian team on the field as well. And we saw a lot of the guys come across and take photos with you guys at the end of the day's play and so forth as well. So and it's good to sort of get the recognition for what you guys are doing over here.
Yeah, for sure. I think the players really respond well. I mean, ever since we were over there in Auckland for the New Zealand Test match, we really the players really appreciate it. They appreciate our support, and look, we're all just Indian cricket fans. Whether they win, lose, or draw, we'll be there regardless, supporting the team. So the crowd was probably a little bit smaller as you can expect with the change of schedule and the midweek, most of the game being midweek. But nevertheless, the local Indian fans came out, and there's a few guys travelling from Melbourne to Sydney and abroad. And yeah, overall, really good support for Team India, and they really appreciate it. And I'm sure that we were their 12th man or 13th man outside on the boundary as well, helping them almost get over the line. As I said, we were almost there. We're really, really glad that they put on such a good show, and hopefully, we can turn the series around in Brisbane.
Absolutely. Well, it's all about the atmosphere, and with the Dole playing, and obviously you guys cheering, it makes a great atmosphere. So well done, Karthik, and we'll get back to you a little bit later. I want to turn my attention now to Angad. We spoke a little bit, before this Test match, and we spoke about the responsibility of the Indian skipper Virat Kohli coming into this game and leading from the front. You've always been a fan of him. I guess. You've been a little bit critical of MS Dhoni's Test captaincy. We all know how good he is as a one-day skipper. But this was a very, very good insight into who could one day be a very successful future Indian captain. How do you see Virat Kohli's performance, both as a captain and also as a batsman in this Test match?
Yeah, look, there was a lot of question marks over whether Kohli was the right man for the job post the England debacle, considering that it was his first rough patch, and the questions over Dhoni's leadership in England, and Indian fans and Indian media kind of felt that it was too early for Kohli since he was in bad batting form, but he just seemed to sort of play that lift to the responsibility. He came out and made 20 times, almost took India over the line in a game that looked like they wouldn't even compete in. So that shows the sort of character he is, and that leadership will actually do him a lot of good in terms of maturing as a cricketer. The only criticism I have of him as a leader is I think that he's still a bit too. He lets his emotions show too much, and as a leader of the team, especially the Indian Test team, I think he needs to rein it in a bit. He's got a lot of young guys with a lot of fire in the belly underneath him, and he needs to sort of lead by example and tone that down a bit. We've seen Shikhar Dhawan and Kohli himself being handed a letter by the match referee and fined for their on-field behaviour. So I think that's going to come with experience. He'll probably tone it down. I mean, the great sort of throughout his career as leader did exactly the same thing as Kohli, which is good for Indian Test cricket to show some aggression as that. So I think this series would be the perfect opportunity to keep him on as skipper. Whether team management decides that's the best thing to do or not is a good story. But so far, I can't see India taking a step back under his leadership.
Yeah, look, some very good observations there. Let's talk a little bit about that altercation. Obviously, Virat Kohli was handed a 15% fine of his match fees for his excessive appealing, I guess, with Steve Smith. How do you see that? I mean, was that sort of right? What happened, or is that just part and parcel of the game, and maybe just an overreaction by the match referee there?
No, I think I think Kohli was letting his frustration show a little bit. They had a few decisions go against them, and with no DRS in play, that was bound to happen. So I think he was just getting a bit frustrated, not being able to obviously review a couple of the decisions that should have gone into his way, and I think that it's as simple as that. He just got the much to get better than him. And as I said earlier, like it will come with experience to learn to tone that down a bit, um, and yeah, learn from there. But I think a bit lighter in the pocket, he might not have cleared as much in Brisbane in the second test.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I do want to touch on was Virat Kohli made it very clear at the post game press conference that India were there to win. They were not playing for the draw, and obviously chasing a total like that. If this was the Indian team of perhaps the early 2000s or even mid 2000s, we might have seen a very different approach. And as he said, if they were going to play for the draw, they might have ended up losing by 150 runs. Is this sort of the approach that India needs, a leader that's strong, inspiring, leads from the front, not only with his batting, but he seems to be really bringing the team along. The disappointing thing, I guess, from an Indian perspective is they fell short, perhaps from a winning position. Angad.
Yeah, definitely. But I think he is such a strong limiter of his team. They need to take some of that mentality into them, especially the last few years, especially abroad. They've taken a very defensive stance, and many times in the winnable positions, they've gone for the draw and then got losing. So, as a fan, as an observer of the game, you'd rather see a team who's trying to win. And I think that's the mentality Michael Clark takes, especially with some of the daring declarations he makes, um, rather than kind of playing defensively for the draw and losing by 150 runs rather than kind of 49, 48 runs short. So it definitely is a change in culture that the team has needed after the horrible performances overseas in the last few years. So as a fan, I would much rather see them uh, going for the win rather than being dealt with
Great.
trying to save the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Good thoughts there, Angad. So now we'll turn our attention to Australia. They obviously went into this Test match in not the best circumstances. A lot of their players were hit by the tragedy of Phil Hughes, and rightly so. And for them to first of all front themselves up to the challenge that presented themselves, go out there, play good, hard, aggressive cricket for 5 days, and win the game was a fantastic effort. We obviously talked a little bit about David Warner's centuries and also Michael Clark, and we'll touch a little bit about that a little bit later. But one person that I do want to speak about first is Nathan Lyon. Now, he finished the game with figures of 12 for 286, and in the process has become the first spinner since Stuart McGill in 2003 to take a 10-wicket haul in Australia, which is a remarkable achievement. So I want to turn to Udi. You're a fellow spinner. What did you think of Nathan Lyon's performance in this game, especially when India generally play spin well, but I thought that Lyon, was very well controlled, and even if he was hit for a few boundaries, wasn't afraid to toss it up. Udi, what did you make of his performance and generally the way Australians approach this Test match?
Funny that you mentioned about the Indian cricketers being really good at playing spin. I think over the last few years we've really seen the progression from India being really good at spin to India being really good all-round cricketers playing fast bowling really well and playing spin well at the same time. But in that time as well, we've seen that the way they play spin has changed. They play usually I don't think they're as aggressive as they used to be. So if you talk about someone like Dravid, someone like Lakshman or Tendulkar, they really used to attack the spinners and take it to them. I don't think that's quite the same. I don't think Indian batsmen play the same way anymore, and I think that's the reason why Lyon was so successful in the first innings. Anyway, I think we saw a little bit of change of approach in the second innings. Talking about Lyon, obviously he was coming off a very poor series in the UAE, so it's good to see him do quite well. He's always done really well in Australia because he gets a lot of bounce, but there was this pressure on him that he needed to take some fourth inning wickets to be, to show the cricketing world how good he is. So obviously he's done that. Something he did really well, I thought, because he really gets a lot of bounce with the bowling. Like top spin is something that's really crucial to his bowling, and he really utilised that really well. I think the Indian players found it really hard to play that bounce, and that's the reason why he was so successful.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you mentioned that. Now, in this particular Test match, we saw that Nathan Lyon, he went for almost 4 and over in the first innings, and then he went for over 4 and over, almost 4.5 and over in his second innings. And in the process, in the whole match, he was actually hit for 6 sixes. So I think India did approach him aggressively, but maybe in this instance, was it a case of going too aggressive? We definitely saw in that second innings where India were chasing down that total, a lot of their batsmen, I mean, we saw Kohli, Rahane, and Sharma all dismissed by Nathan Lyon. I guess, Kohli, it was probably fair to say it was an aggressive shot.
I think
maybe he's a bit unlucky, or he's always a bit nervous at the start of his innings.
I think it was a different kind of aggression. Like when I think of the greats like Sachin, Lakshman, and Dravid, they could really grind it out, but at the same time, put the spinners on the back foot. Someone like Tendulkar playing Shane Warne in the 90s and early 2000s, what he did really well was he put him on the back foot, even though he was such a great spinner. There was at no point did it look like that Lyon was on the back foot. Maybe in the fourth innings, yes. But in the first innings where India was doing really well on a really good batting wicket, I think India needed to really attack. Vijay did it really well. Pujara got really stuck there. Rahane got stuck. Rohit Sharma, same thing. So, I think there's a little bit of thinking to do for the Indian batsman there, because Lyon is, we've got a pretty good wicket there.
Yeah.
The same in Brisbane or Melbourne. So,
Yeah, so I guess the takeaway there is, aggression, but also getting the shot selection right. Now, I guess before we turn to another question, Udi, is Lyon the answer for Australia's spin worries? He's certainly, had a bit of a struggle in UAE. He's bounced back in this Test match. How's he going to fare for the rest of the series? And are Australia perhaps missing a leg spin option, or are they okay at the moment with the way Lyon's going?
Well, he's taken 12 wickets in the last game. You can't do much better than that. For now, I think you got to give him a go. You got to back him. I think he'll be going into the Brisbane Test with a lot of confidence, and they'll do him a lot of good. And hopefully he can keep him performing.
Okay, great. So I guess the next question here, I'm going to open it up to everyone. We've had a lot of debate and discussion about the DRS. Obviously, the BCCI have been opposed to using it for various reasons. We've got the guys for DRS saying that obviously if the technology is available, we should use it. We've got the guys against DRS saying that there are still concerns about how accurate the technology is, and it's not foolproof. Also, unless and until the ICC are willing to use all available technologies, at all venues across all countries, it's a case where there's always going to be, that standard not being met. So, in this particular game, there were a number of decisions that went against both teams. So I guess it is a fair question to ask: what should be done about the DRS situation, and what do you guys think from a personal opinion? Angad, you can start.
Well, in this test, we saw a lot of decisions that could have been overturned without the use of ball tracking. Now, I know the BCCI's biggest concern prior to the equality in the DRS was ball tracking technology. Didn't need Hawkeye or Eagle Eye to show that Rahane didn't hit the ball that he got out to in the fourth innings, or Shikadawan's dismissal in fourth innings of the game. So, look, I think it should be used. It should be uniform across the world. The ICC should pay for it, but maybe compromise on ball tracking if not everyone is if everyone's too keen on that, because at the end of the day, it will get rid of the howler. Like without hot spots, sometimes you can see a massive variation of the gun. Both sides benefited from not having the DRS in this game because they both it evened out throughout the match. So you can't really complain because it's the same went for both sides. So it's a tricky one. We're going to be here forever if we keep discussing the DRS. There's too many pros and cons and too many variables, I think. But it does give us something to talk about.
So, what would you go for it or would you go against it?
I would go for it, but maybe leave out the ball tracking.
Okay, all right. And Kartik, what are your thoughts, mate?
I agree and disagree with Angad, if that makes sense. Agree in the sense that, and not many things that I say make sense, but I'll give it a go anyway. I agree in the sense that we should have it. We should have the technology. I think if it's available, then it should be done. I'm really very disappointed that one particular board can go above the rest of the world and say, no, we're not going to use it because, well, pretty much because they just don't feel like it. The argument they keep coming up with is that it's not 100% accurate, it's not 100% accurate. Well, look, realistically, you're never going to get 100% accuracy. Nothing in this world is 100% perfect and accurate. So, that's you're going to have to accept the error in anything. But the idea of the DRS system is to reduce the howlers, and we saw there were quite a few howlers in the test match last week. On the flip side to that, there is the element of the traditional side of the game. We've all sort of grown up and been born and brought up in this game. We've learned how we play the game, and on the off day you get a bad decision, but it all evens out in the end. Over the course of a series, or even over the course of a test match. Not even going that far. Over the course of the one innings, I mean, Virat and Vijay were arguably probably very lucky to get as close as they did. They should have been LBW very early on. Survived that, and then you could say that Rahane got the rough one that Kohli should have got, and Vijay probably got a rough one as well. So look, it all evens out, even in the game itself. So the way I see it is, everybody has it or nobody has it, and I think you're never going to get 100%. Technology is never going to be 100% accurate, but it's pretty close. I think the part I disagree with Angad is that I think the ball tracking should be there. I think it's despite the one incident that happened recently with, I think it's Pakistan and New Zealand, I think it's been pretty good. Even if you're getting close in the 95 to 97%, that saves a lot more careers than it ruins. So I certainly think that if the technology is there, everyone should use it, or if they're going to scrap it, then it should be scrapped for everyone. I really don't believe in one series having it, one series not having it. And yeah, you're right. I think the ICC should just step in and say, we're going to pay for everything, or we're not going to pay for it at all. Because let's be honest, they're making enough money from India anyway, so I'm sure they can afford to fork it out for the better of the game.
Absolutely. And Udi, what's your thoughts, mate? So we've had obviously two contrasting views in some aspects, but I think we agree that the technology is there, and perhaps it should be utilised.
I think Karthik hit the nail on the head. Obviously, it's never going to be 100% accurate, and ICC should step in and be like, look, it's going to be there for all games or it's not going to be there at all. And also like players can't play and umpire at the same time. Like Shane Watson's a classic example. He's never been really good at using the DRS, so it shouldn't be left in the player's hands. It's there to get rid of the howler. So the third umpire or the match referee or someone should step, or the fourth umpire, whoever, should step in and be like, look, that's the incorrect decision. That's clearly not out, and we need to reverse that. Or there should be no DRS at all.
Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, look, it's an interesting debate. My personal thought is, you should be using all the technology available. We saw that, I'm not really a huge fan of hotspot, I have to admit. Sometimes, there have been edges that Sneaker has picked up and hotspot hasn't. But I do think that I think Sneaker is probably the best tool from an accuracy perspective. And the tracking device is also not bad. I mean, it's obviously extrapolating the distances from after impact, but I think it's better than as Kartik said, you want to try and reduce the howlers from the game, and unless the BCCI sort of ease their stance and the ICC take this upon a little bit more seriously, we're going to get ourselves in this gridlock. So my personal opinion is DRS should be used. But I also agree with the views that the tradition of the game can't be lost. So we need to maybe have a very clear directive on when it can be utilised and how it can be utilised. But definitely for technology going forward.
Sorry. Also talking about sort of the players having the option of when to review their decision. The issue with that is a lot of teams use that as a tactic. For that 50-50 chance where they can actually reverse a decision. I don't think that's the way it should be. The DRS meant to be used. I think it needs to be used to reduce the howlers and not really favour a team in a certain situation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
To Udi's point, taking out of the player's hands. I mean, we're brought up on questioning an umpire's decision is dissent, and then you get to the top level of the game and you're allowed to do it. Twice an inning or whatever it is. So I agree with taking out the player's hands and either third or fourth umpire making a call as he sees it would actually make everyone happier, I think.
Yeah, some good thoughts, guys. At the end of the day, I think more test matches like this will obviously pressurize the ICC to sort of come up with something that all countries can adopt, and it's good that we are having this discussion. Looks like Chetan has just joined. Let's wait for him to come up. Chetan, are you up, mate? Can you hear us? Hello. Hi Chetan, how are you? It's Nav here.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, good, thanks. Can you hear us
Yeah,
well?
can you hear me? Yeah, I'm sorry, joining late, but yeah.
No, that's all right, mate.
How was dinner? How was dinner?
So,
How was dinner?
hi to everyone.
What did you have for dinner? That's the first question, mate.
Just some Indian stuff, a little bit of
Butter
chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just saw it and I just couldn't.
Yeah.
Just saw it and couldn't resist.
Missing home already, mate.
Sorry.
Missing home too much already.
Yeah, it's been 3 weeks. Just been one test match, so yeah, could have done with a little more action, but sad events leading up to the first test, so can't really control that.
Fantastic. So, look, Chetan, just to give you a bit of an overview, we've sort of talked a little bit about the first test. We spoke a little bit about Virat Kohli's leadership and batting. Also looked at Nathan Lyon's contributions, and then we've just discussed the DRS. But we want to try and get your inputs. You were there live in Adelaide. You've covered a lot of cricket, Indian cricket especially. all their sort of games locally as well as internationally. How do you sort of make this Indian side that's come to Australia? They came very close in the first game, but they've obviously lost by 48 runs. We always thought from an Indian perspective that they really needed to get on top in the first game because Adelaide conditions were probably going to suit their style a little bit more. But then again, from an Australian perspective, the way they've bounced back after Phil Hughes' tragedy has just shown that they've still got the mental makeup, and it means that India have now lost 4 matches in a row overseas, and that seems like continuing unless they change something quickly.
Well, let's not, first of all, let's not talk about how many they've lost overseas, because we still have the 8-0, so 4-0 doesn't really compare at the moment. The first test was a little surprising, obviously, because no one expected India to play such aggressive cricket. No one expected them to come within 50 runs of winning that match. Obviously, Australia proved to be the better side over the course of 5 days, and I thought that was the case because India didn't bowl particularly well in either of the innings. I mean, there was just one session on day 4 when they bowled really, really well, and they didn't allow Australia to score freely. I mean, until Mitchell Marsh and Steve Smith came together. So until then, they didn't really score that freely, and as a result, they were not able to declare earlier, which would have given Australia a little more time, because starting on day 5 and from scratch, or starting from day 4 when you probably would have lost Shikhar Dhawan very cheaply, would have made a bit of difference. So yeah, that was the one session where I thought India bowled really well. Apart from that, day 1 towards the end bowled well, but then again they should have continued bowling well on day 2, because late on day 1 they realized what lengths to hit with the second new ball, but they didn't replicate that on day 1. So that was a lost cause, really. So it's a bit of a concern that they only took 12 wickets on a pitch which actually suited them, and I was so disappointed that R. Ashwin was not playing another test match overseas. I mean, this guy has just played 6 test matches in 4 years overseas. I mean, what does he have to do? I mean, he's sitting out for Jadeja, who's actually not really a test match cricketer. If I were Dhoni, I would never. I mean, if I were Dhoni, and obviously because Jadeja is my best friend, so I will play him. But if I were the Indian captain, I would never play Jadeja in test cricket. How he is playing ahead of Ashwin in overseas tests, when you want 5 bowlers, when you want additional batting, I will never understand. But then, to top it up, you have a debutant leg spinner who comes in and, I mean, are you serious? Are you really serious? In a debutant leg spinner in Australia? I mean, what has Ashwin done wrong? You can't judge someone based on 6 overseas tests in 4 years. You just cannot. I mean, yes, he's not taken wickets. Yes, he's bowled poorly. But then, if you remember, Anil Kumble, Harbhajan Singh, they didn't do so well either. In their first couple of tours. You need that time to learn. You need that time to play, so that you can get aware of the conditions, get aware where you've gone wrong, and with experience, you probably get to bowl better. So, because Ashwin has played here in 2011, maybe we would have seen a different spinner here in Adelaide, maybe. And I mean, you can see how Lyon bowled. I mean, those roughs. I mean, I cannot. I for one cannot believe that Ashwin was not bowling on those roughs. Seriously, can't.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting position that the Indian camp have gone with Khan Sharma. What were you hearing in the lead up to that Test match? Was it something that they try to do to unsettle the Australians? Obviously, they might not have studied Khan very much, but as you said, playing a leg spinner, a relatively unknown leg spinner, he hasn't played that many first-class matches either, and to sort of put him up against the Australians in their own backyard, I think was the wrong position.
Well, I think everybody is jumping on this bandwagon at the moment that Virat Kohli is very aggressive, very aggressive, very aggressive. I'll come to that later, but I think with the spinning option he went a little over aggressive, because you're thinking that okay, the Aussies haven't seen him. Then in the post-match conference he said that he was the best spinner in the practice games and he was bowling well in the net sessions as well. How do you judge that? Okay, fine, maybe they are able to judge that. But then again, I mean, if you're playing just one spinner, obviously you have to pick a four-man attack, and you're just playing one spinner. Would you go with a debutant? No, you have to. I mean, yes, Ashwin has only played 6 tests, but he still played 6 tests, and he's also played Test cricket back home. He has experience. He can bat. Obviously, he can bat. I mean, in both the innings, we needed someone from the lower order to hold one end together. Imagine if Ashwin was batting there, holding one end together, and while Kohli was hitting line all over the place, those 50 runs wouldn't have mattered at all. India would have probably won the Test match. So Kohli tried to go over aggressive with his spin option, and that probably backfired. And I think that has probably cost India the Test match.
Look, I have to agree with you there. I mean, if we have a look at what happened in that game, in that first innings, we see that Australia batted. Murali Vijay bowled 13 overs, and then in the second innings, we saw a combination of 18 overs bowled by Rohit Sharma and Murali Vijay again. So, Kohli had to rely on part-timers to essentially make up what Khan Sharma was doing wrong. I mean, his economy rate was almost close to 6 runs an over in that second innings, and that's basically, I think, what's resulted in Australia getting away and scoring, way too many runs in that second.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. I think people keep mentioning that Virat Kohli was really aggressive throughout the Test match. I personally disagree with that. He was really aggressive with his own batting, and perhaps he was really aggressive in the dressing room in terms of the approach. But he was on the back foot from the first over. They made none for 50 of the first, I think, 7 overs in the first session, and he was always behind the ball. It took him until the second new ball to actually sort of pull the game back a little bit.
Well, in that scenario, if I can just say something, see, he was aggressive. I mean, he was aggressive to an extent. I mean, like I said, I personally agree with you that he was not. I mean, everybody's just going gaga like Dhoni has never done anything for us, and he should just be chucked out and never brought back into the Test side. I mean, that's just ridiculous at the moment. So the thing is, Kohli was aggressive to an extent. Kohli, he had some aggressive field placements, which probably we would not have seen with Dhoni. Yes, he was chasing the ball, but then there's also the factor that India's bowling attack is really pathetic. I mean, you have the new ball, you give it to Varun Aaron, and he sprays it and goes for 7 runs and over. The captain can't do anything. He just has to chase the ball. Then after that.
I mean, it's a good point that you make. It's a good point that you make there, Chadden. I mean, we saw that first innings, as you said, Udi, was a great chance for India's pace bowlers to make a difference. But what do we see? After 10 overs, Australia were 1 for 60 in a Test match.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the captain has to chase the ball. The only difference, perhaps, was that he chased the ball a little more aggressively than perhaps, because Dhoni would have had deep point and deep square leg, and that's it. This guy had, Shane Watson was batting, so he had 3 fielders at mid wicket, and he had so many different fields. He kept trying, but that's the thing. I mean, the problem that I see here is when Dhoni became captain first, right? In his first couple of Test matches, he also had such field placements, and everybody was like, "Oh, Dhoni's so aggressive, Dhoni's so aggressive." And now what do we say? Dhoni is defensive. So this is just one Test match, and the biggest factor here, which everybody is missing, India lost that Test match. The score is not 0-0. The score is not 1-0 in India's favor. It's 1-0 in Australia's favor. So, I mean, let Kohli become captain. Let him, captain for 5-6 Test matches. Let us see the results in those Test matches. I mean, people can say, oh, wow, we would rather lose a Test match like this than lose a Test match like that. Tell me, if he goes on to lose the next 5 Test matches, and in his first 6 Test matches, he's aggressive, but he's lost all 6 Test matches, then are the people going to say the same thing? No. Because Indian cricket fans are very, very fickle, right? It's just one Test match. He's done some good work, but unless he gets results, this doesn't mean anything.
Well, I think the bigger picture is how does India win a Test match overseas? I think that's the question that every Indian fan will want to know. And I guess from an Australian perspective, they will know that India has never won a Test series here in history. So that's something that I think it's a combination of mindset and how you approach it. We've talked about the skipper leading from the front and setting aggressive field and so forth, but it's also about execution. India have come into this series with what I believe is their best, or most fit pace attack in recent history. Now they've got Varun Aaron, who bowls at almost 150 Ks. They've got Mohammad Shami that swings the ball well. Ishan Sharma that's meant to be the leader of the attack, but fails to get wickets on a regular basis. I mean, this is a team that's doing well. And then you've got Umesh Yadav, who didn't even play that first game. The question that I want to raise to all of you is, what's wrong with India's fast bowlers? You saw the practice games, Chetan, the 2 games that they played in Adelaide, in the lead up to this game, when those guys were taking wickets. Put in a game situation, David Warner in 30 minutes destroys their confidence, and they're bowling like Ajit Agarkar in a one-day game, 10 years ago.
Well, David Warner first. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just in their defence, Nav, I think you and I probably could have scored 60 and 10 overs on that wicket on day one. That was they were almost playing on concrete. That's how flat that wicket was. Having said that, it's not an excuse. But yeah, I just watching the game from the stands. Man, I tell you what, I could have scored 100 on day one on that wicket. That was one of the flattest tracks I've ever seen in Adelaide.
I agree with you that it was quite flat, but in saying that, India didn't really bowl.
No, they didn't. They certainly didn't bowl well. But I don't think it's something that we should be knocking them about, because of the fact that India actually scored 440 as well in their first inning.
Oh yeah, no.
I don't think.
To stop you there. Given it was a flat track, what happens when they get to the Gabba, when they've got something to work with? They're bowling the same lines, the same length.
Yeah, so that'll be the big test.
And then can't back it up by making 441 because
Correct.
Johnson come in and bowl them at 200.
That'll be the big.
What happens then?
Yeah, my point here is, I mean, yeah, it's all very good. That's a batting track and everything. Indian batsmen scored quicker for that matter in the 90 overs. I mean, but the big point is that the Indian batsmen were made to work for their runs. The Aussie bowlers bowled to a plan. They bowled a proper line and length. The Indian batsmen actually batted better than the Australian batsmen because they were made to work for their runs. On the second day, when it was raining and it was overcast, and everything, that was shit bowling. That was shit bowling for 2 sessions or whatever play was possible. Michael Clarke, he cannot turn like this. He cannot play like this. Yet he's scoring boundaries so easily without even turning. What was that? I mean, to a guy who cannot turn, you're bowling short of length. Bring him forward. There was no plan. There was a lack of plan basically there. And Nav, you were asking me, why were they taking wickets in the practice games? Because those were practice games. I mean, the quality of opposition matters as well, right? So,
in the practice game, 9 of the players had, it was like 7 or 8 of the players had not played a first-class game before.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think Ishant bowled well in both the innings, but he bowled in patches, and the biggest thing here is that the consistency is lacking. And the biggest example of that is on the first day, yes, the pitch was flat and they were scoring runs, but they did come back. They regained their length in the last session, got some wickets, and the next morning, especially with the cloud cover, they should have realized, okay, there's a particular length that we got wickets from, and we should bowl that length, and we'll get even more help because it's an overcast condition. But if you're gonna bowl short of length, if you're not gonna learn from your mistakes, then there's no point. And that's the problem with the Indian bowlers at the moment, that there's a lack of consistency again, but that comes with experience. I mean, that's the only reason why Ishant Sharma takes so much criticism, because he's so experienced at such a young age. But then I thought he bowled well in patches, but just because the pitch was a little too conducive or too easy for batting, we could not really see that. And I think if he bowls like the way he bowled in Adelaide, we might see a different performance from the Indians. But again, day one, first session, Varun Aaron spraying it everywhere and Mohammad Shami spraying it everywhere, that doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, look, some very interesting points there, and I agree. I think first innings of any test match, it's up to India in that instance to really come hard at the batsmen. They have to do. David Warner, the way he played, he took it to the bowlers and knew that they were going to spray it. They weren't able to bowl their lengths. Varun Aaron said at the end of the first day's play that they didn't bowl the areas they would have liked and they didn't execute the plans. but they didn't win in the second innings, which was a cause of concern. One point I do want to raise before we turn our attention onto the second Test match, very briefly, is we often speak about Ishant Sharma. All the reports that we get out of India is he's a hard worker. He's liked by his bowling coach, and he trains really well and got a very good attitude and so forth. But at the end of the day, Ishant Sharma leads this Indian attack, and he has a bowling average of 37 in Test cricket. He wouldn't get into many teams with that sort of record. What does he need to do to step up in the second game? Obviously, a little bit more. But really, we'll start off with you. Technically, is there anything that Ishant Sharma is wrong at the moment with the way he's bowling? Because he's obviously not getting the wickets that the bowler of his height and bounce should be getting.
Sorry, I can't. Hello?
Yes. Yeah, Rudy?
Yeah, I think bowling averages, I know it's something that's really talked about, but as a fast bowler, or as a medium fast bowler growing up on Indian pitches, it's very hard to take wickets there. I don't really think it's his fault, because for the last 4 years, I don't think they've played a lot, apart from sort of the last 12 months, they haven't played a lot of cricket overseas. They've played a lot of Test cricket at home, and because playing a lot of Test cricket at home, fast bowlers, and he's played a lot of games, and he hasn't got a lot of opportunity to bowl on on pitches that suit fast bowling, so he hasn't taken a lot of wickets. I think that those statistics don't really reflect well on how truly good he is. I think he's a very good bowler, and his stats are unfair.
So do you think he's a bit of an unlucky bowler perhaps for India?
Oh, absolutely. First innings he bowled really well and deserved more wickets than he got. I think he was the only bowler who had an economy of less than 250 in the first two sessions.
Look, I personally do believe he did bowl well in this game. What do the rest of the guys think? Angad, Karthik, what are your thoughts on Ishant Sharma? Do you think he can rise to the occasion in Brisbane?
Look, I think. Sorry, Angad. I think he certainly can. I can understand Udi's point to a degree where he's unlucky, but I mean, my view or my take on it is that this is international cricket. I mean, you make your own luck in this game, and as we've seen with even with the batsmen as well. A perfect example is Rohit Sharma. I mean, how much talent has the guy got? How many chances has he had? And still finds a way to get himself out in the big moments when India needed to step up. So, I don't. I'm not. I'm all for seeing Ishant doing really well. And yes, he's putting in the hard yards, and he's not getting the results. But that should be motivating enough for him to keep working harder, because he's been around for a really long time. I mean, the worrying part for all Indian cricket fans is we're still talking about that one spell he bowled to Ricky Ponting 12 years ago, and that was the highlight of his career. So if that's his highlight, and he's come this far, and that's still his highlight, then that's a worrying sign. So you make your own luck in this game, and yeah, I don't subscribe to the theory of how he's been an unlucky bowler and whatnot, because that's just not good enough. I mean, he is leading the attack, and he should be taking more wickets. Whether it's playing on Indian pitches or not is that shouldn't be an excuse, because the Glenn McGraths or Michael Kasparov of yesteryear came and did really well on Indian pitches, and even the West Indies back in the 80s and 70s, they did really well on the Indian pitches as well. So yeah. And no disrespect, Udi. I don't think that's.
I see. Obviously, you're making a very good point. I've got a question for you. Can you compare those sort of, Kasparov, McGrath, and the West Indies bowlers in the 80s to Ishant Sharma?
Of course not. Oh no, it wasn't a comparison. It wasn't a comparison. Don't get me wrong. He's never going to be. Oh well, never say never, but he's not at that level. But I guess the point is that when you mentioned that he's grown up on Indian pitches and it's a lot harder to bowl and take wickets on there. That's sort of what I was alluding to, in that if overseas players are capable of doing it, why can't our guys? And
on that point,
even
was one of the greatest wicket takers of all time.
Sorry, Angus. Even just if you go next door and you see all these Pakistani bowlers, I mean, it's pretty much the same conditions. You know, how are they doing so well and churning out fast bowlers left, right, and centre? You know, albeit they may not be legally allowed to play, but that's a different issue. But you know, they're turning out fast bowlers. You know, yet we seem to turn out batsmen, and you know, you can't even play a fast bowler.
My take on it, and then we'll go around and we'll look to the second test as well with Angad. But personally, I think that you know, we don't develop our bowlers enough. I feel, you know, someone that has a good bowling action, has the height, can generate the bounce, as we saw in the 2007 series, which we keep talking about. You know, Ishan Sharma had that potential, but he never really developed. We actually saw him lose his pace. You know, he was bowling at 145, 147. Now he bowls at 130, 135, and we're happy with that. And we call him, you know, the leader of our attack. So I think the way we've developed him over the last 7 years hasn't been up to it. Maybe he has been playing a lot of cricket, you know, all three formats, and he, you know, he's still relatively young, which we don't sometimes take into account. And you know, the point that Udi did say, he has played a lot of his cricket in India, but we have had guys who have done well, you know, overseas players, but then also, you know, Indian guys in the past. You know, Kapil Dev comes to mind. You know, he used to bowl swing. He has done well. Zahir Khan, master of conditions. Javagal Srinath did well for India in those conditions as well. So there are guys that have done well. Ishan Sharma needs to step up. Looking ahead to the Brisbane Test match, starting with you, Angad, what does India need to do to change? And from, I guess, an Indian perspective, what are the changes that are required? Do you see Khan Sharma out and Ravi Ashwin in? We probably think that's going to be an easy one, but what are some of the other you know, things that the captain might consider?
I just want to add to the chat about Ishant. I felt that he bowled well in Adelaide, but whatever pressure he built was released at the other end, and I feel that he's one of those bowlers who needs to work in a partnership, and if his bowling partner at the other end is releasing pressure by spraying the ball all over the place, he's not going to be able to play cricket. Now going ahead to Brisbane, well, you mentioned it, I don't see Karan Sharma playing, especially with Bhuvaneshwar Kumar out. Ravi Ashwin would provide some of that lower order batting that was sorely needed in the first test. I can't see too much else being changed. The batsmen performed well. Shikhar Dhawan looked good until he got out in the first innings and then copped a rough one in the second innings. And as much as it pains me to say that Rohit got out to soft dismissals in both innings, I think that they will both be given another crack each. And I would also be giving Aaron another dig, especially at the Gabba, before moving on to Melbourne and Sydney to see whether he's up for the final two tests. Now, I've been hearing that Dhoni still might not be right. Maybe Chetan can shed some light on that since he is in Brisbane, but I feel that it would be just one change from the game in Adelaide, and that would be Ravi Ashwin in for Karan Sharma. And I think we've got the bowlers to sort of to put some pressure on, especially at the Gabba. But let's just see if the batsmen can cope with the bounce, especially with Johnson, Harris, and likely to be Stark or Hazelwood to come in for Australia.
Sorry, we'll go to Chetan now, who might have the update on MS Dhoni's situation. Is the skipper going to be back, or are we going to see Virat Kohli captaining for one more match?
Well, I just landed here this afternoon, so I didn't go to the stadium, but I heard that Dhoni was not keeping again today, and I think that's vital for him because he was batting in the nets even before the Adelaide Test. So the issue is with his keeping and not with his batting as such. So we'll know tomorrow. But yeah, I agree with Angad there that even if Dhoni is fit, they should play the same combination, the 7-4 batsman, maybe give Rohit another go because the conditions at the Gabba will be a lot more easier for the bowlers. They'll get a little bit more purchase, so if they can bowl well. The one change that I'll probably make 2 changes instead of 1. I'll probably bring in, yes, obviously I'll bring in Ashwin instead of Karan Sharma because obviously he gives at the Gaba, you probably need an extra batsman, so he brings a little more to the batting, but also a little more experience. Like with the spin, it's tough for the leg spinner. He bowled decently well on a tough wicket, but yeah, he shouldn't be the first choice spinner at the moment. I would also make a change. I would drop Shah and bring in Umesh Yadav. I thought Varun Aaron bowled well in the second innings. He learned his lesson from the first innings, and the Australians are a bit, they've taken notice of Aaron. They've taken notice of his pace. So, it would be, despite the fact that he's a little more expensive, it will be, yeah, okay, you should play a little more. The thing with Mohammad Shami is he's been inconsistent for a long time now. Throughout the England series, he was very, very inconsistent. He was dropped for one of the he was dropped from one of the tests, if I remember correctly. So um, I think that Shami should sit out this match and probably give a go to Umesh. He took a 5 for in the last time he played in Australia. He knows the conditions a little bit. So and it's not that he doesn't have that pace. He also has that pace from the recent times that I've.
Okay,
So,
and Carney, what are your thoughts?
Nav, sorry. I've got a question for Chetan.
Yeah.
What's is Nomanoja in the side?
Yeah, he is. I mean, he is a backup for Saha actually. So I mean, because as long as Dhoni is unfit, they have two keepers in the squad. That's Saha and Ocha. So he's a backup to Saha.
Yeah,
So once Dhoni is fit, Ocha is going to go back. But
right, okay. And who are the reserve fast bowlers at the moment?
reserve fast bowlers, we have just Umesh Yadav and we have Dhawal Kulkarni because Bhuvneshwar Kumar is ruled out because of injury. So, but I don't see Dhawal Kulkarni getting a go ahead of Umesh or Shami at the moment. But then again, if Virat is captain and the morning of the test match, if it's a little cloudy, greenish wicket, Dhawal is a bit of a swing bowler, so he might just get a chance there. So with Kohli, you never know, which is actually feels nice to say. But if he's going to make decisions like he did with Karan Sharma ahead of Ashwin, then no thank you.
Bit of a roll of the dice or a lottery, looks like, with Virat Kohli's captaincy as far as the selection is concerned. We'll go to Kicks. What's your thoughts on the selection leading up to the second test?
Yeah, look, I have to agree with pretty much what Chetan has said. Definitely, for me, I actually thought Umesh Yadav would have played the first test match ahead of Varun Aaron. I was very surprised to see Aaron given a go ahead of Yadav. I felt that Yadav when he started off, he was very much erratic like Aaron, and now in the last couple of years, he's done really well and he's become a lot more consistent. He's bowling quick and he's also bowling in good areas, so he's keeping it tight and getting wickets. So I actually expected Yadav to be ahead of Aaron. It's going to be a tough one. I would still lean towards keeping Shami in the side and swapping Yadav with Aaron. Having said that, I think it'll be very, very good. And probably this is something that the Indian fans have been waiting for a long time, is that we have two fast bowlers, or extreme pace bowlers in 145 going, on bowling at each end. I think that would be fantastic as long as Aaron can get in the right areas. I'm confident the other will. That will be really, really tough, especially on the Gabba wicket with the ball dipping around a lot. That'll be fantastic. So for me, you know what? I think I'm going to go with Aaron and Yadav together with Ishant, and then obviously Ashwin has to come in for Karan Sharma. Not only for the bowling but also for the batting as well. I mean, as you get a Test century under his belt, and if you've got a Test century, you can bat a bit. So that's for mine. In terms of the batting, look, I don't see any changes there. Probably the argument you could probably have is to give Suresh Raina a go, but I'm not sure he's going to be doing much better than Rohit Sharma. So I think still give the batsman another chance, but for me, definitely Karan Sharma out, Ashwin in, and Yadav definitely has to play. Whether he plays for Aaron or Shami, we'll have to see, but I think Yadav definitely has to play.
Okay, great. And Udi, what are your thoughts, mate, in the lead up to the selection?
I agree with Kartik there. I was really surprised that Yadav didn't play, especially after a really good ODI series last month against Sri Lanka, where he, on really, batting friendly wickets, he bowled really well. So for me, I'd prefer to see him in place of Aaron, as much as it'd be nice to see two fast bowlers bowling from each end. I don't think Aaron is quite up to the mark yet. He needs to really learn to not be erratic. And for the time being, I'd love to see Umesh Yadav get a go. I'm also a huge fan of Dhaval Kulkarni. He's really accurate and he swings the ball. So I think it's just a matter of whether they back him or not. Seeing that Karan Sharma played first game, they might even give him a go, and I wouldn't mind seeing him in place of Shami. And I agree with Ashwin switching up with Karan Sharma, and that'd be the four bowlers. Also, Namanoja, when India A toured Australia A in, I think it was July, Namanoja made a double hundred, and he made a double hundred, and he made 100.
Mm.
So I'm really surprised, like having seen his track record in Australia, he's not getting a go. I would personally like to see him in there, and wouldn't really change anything with the batting.
Who would you drop?
Saha for Namanoja.
Okay, so that's if Dhoni doesn't play.
Well, if Dhoni doesn't play.
Yeah. Look, what I would do is definitely try and get Oja in there if Dhoni doesn't play. But I would stick with Shami for this second game. I think he does swing the ball, and if he gets it right, he could be deadly on those conditions. He didn't really get it right in that first game, but I would replace Aaron with Yadav. I think Aaron, he does have the raw pace, and there is a school of thought that says, give him another game. It's obviously the first match of the tour, and maybe there was a bit of nerves as well. But I do think that Umesh Yadav is perhaps the more consistent of the two bowlers. You can't have your fastest bowler in the game or in the team, leaking almost 6 runs and over, and especially with David Warner, the ease at which he sort of saw, whatever Aaron was throwing at him. I think we needed a change. So I'll go with Umesh Yadav. Obviously, the spinner's choice is a fairly easy one. Ravi Ashwin will come in for Karan Sharma, and we'll stick with Mohammad Shami as well. The batting I wouldn't really change for Brisbane at this stage, but as Udi said, I'd love to get Namanoja in if MS Dhoni was not fit. So I guess the final question, guys, before we wrap this up is, who's going to win this game? We'll start off with Angie, and we'll just go across before we wrap today's session up.
To be honest, we haven't talked about the position Australia is in. Brad Haddin's on form. Siddle hasn't been bowling well. Clark's gone. I think India's got a chance here, to be honest. The optimist in me says that India will win in 4 days.
All right, fantastic. And Chetan, what's your thoughts, mate?
Regarding the test result?
That's right. Yes, the one that's coming up in Brisbane. Can India win this, or is Australia too strong?
I think it'll be a close run thing, but Australia will win in the end because new captain, better home conditions. They know how to bowl at the Gava. India will probably learn later in the innings that this is how we need to bowl after Australia have scored some 500 runs. And we'll see. If Virat is still the captain, we'll see some aggressive cricket. But yeah, I think India will lose again.
Okay, so it's a loss from Chetan, and the ever optimist DJ Kicks next up, mate. What are your thoughts for this second game? You're on mute, mate, so you need to get your mute. Kartik is still on mute. Wait, no one can hear you, mate.
Is that better?
Yep. Start again, mate.
Okay, so if you people have been watching our hangouts at the Swamyami, you'll all know that I'm forever the optimist in Indian cricket. I'm expecting India to win this match quite comfortably. It should be. I think the test match starts on a Wednesday. I think the game should be wrapped up by lunchtime on Saturday. Australia probably will bat first. Australia definitely will bat first. They always seem to somehow bat first in Brisbane. But I think they'll be rolled over on day one, and that'll set up the test match for India. So that's my prediction. I'm expecting India to win quite comfortably. And it sounds very unrealistic, and people may think that I'm smoking something that I shouldn't be, but definitely I think look, this is what I really believe. I think we actually will turn a lot of heads and do really well. We have to. I mean, it's about time. We got to do something. There's no point losing this match, because if we lose this match, then the series is gone. So we definitely have to. I'm expecting India not to only come here and draw, or not even retain the series, but regain the trophy as well. So I'm expecting India to win.
Absolutely. So we do have the Border Gavaskar Trophy. That's the ultimate prize for this particular series. And Kartik, well, for your sake, let's hope that India can wrap this up. They will be challenged, no doubt. Udi, what are your thoughts, mate? Perhaps a little bit more realistic, in your opinion?
Yeah, look, the first session is going to be really crucial. Like, no matter who bowls, we got if India bats, like, putting Johnson away in the first session is going to be really tough. So if India can get away, in that first session without too many wickets lost, India is definitely a chance. And same with if Australia bats, India needs to bowl really well in the first session and take a couple of early wickets if they want to do well. But in saying that, I think Johnson's going to be a big factor at the Gabba, along with Ryan Harris. So it's going to be pretty hard to beat those two guys. I reckon I'm going to go with Australia this time.
Okay, great. So look, I particularly think that India have a good chance in Brisbane if their pacers get it right. But I feel as though based on the way Australia played, and especially with Mitchell Johnson just starting to look at his best as well. Nathan Lyon already in good form. Australia may just have the edge over India. I'm going to pick Australia for the second Test match, but you never know if India get on a roll, especially with Umesh Yadav and Ishant Sharma, if he can snare a few wickets in those conditions, and the batsmen can sort of hold their own. It could be a very, very interesting Test match. What will be very interesting to see, of course, is also Steve Smith's leadership in that second Test game. He will be tested at times and put under pressure, and that's what we want to see. So it'll give a good taste into Australian cricket's future. It looks like it'll be a very, very exciting Test match, beginning on Wednesday, of course. We will have to finish the session here today, guys. A big thanks to Angad and Kartik from Swami Army for joining us here today. Of course, you can follow them on Twitter at Swami Army. Just type that up, and they're, of course, the official supporter group of the Indian team, and they'll be there in force for that second game as well. Chetan Narula.
Sorry, Nav, just before you continue, two things there. For those watching, it's Swami with an I, so make sure you spell it right. And the second thing is, the rumor is, my sources tell me that this is Brad Haddin's last Test match. So yeah, that's something that you've heard it here first. So that's something as well.
There you go. That's probably breaking news that even Chetan Narula.
I don't think anybody around the world knows that one. That's something that comes from a reliable source. So just stay tuned.
Right, so we'll be looking very closely from the boundaries edge there. Also, big thanks to Chetan Narula. He obviously had a fantastic dinner today, and obviously that comes first, even before cricket. But next time we hope that we can get some more opinionated thoughts and some good discussion following the second Test match. And Udi Gore as well, from Infinity Cricket. Thanks a lot for your thoughts today. It has been well and truly a good discussion, boys. So look forward to catching you guys again after the second Test match. Have a great night. And as always, Infinity Cricket is the place for all things cricket. It's connecting people through cricket. You can follow us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Infinity Cricket. Thanks a lot, guys. Good night, and see you soon. Thank you.